You're listening to Nightmares with Beers. Your hosts, Mark and Blaster. Grab a beer, prepare for fear.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Nightmares with
Beer.
the show that explores the true facts of horror movies with tons of
Beer.
As always, we're your hosts, Mark and Blaster.
Today we're going to talk about the movie The Girl Next Door. We'll discuss the true horrors behind the movie and offer listener insight to the actual events. So, did you watch the movie The Girl Next Door?
Yes, of course, unfortunately.
I know, it was pretty hard to watch. This movie is also known as, it's not also known as, there's another movie based on the same story called An American Crime, which is equally as brutal as this movie.
Did you see that one?
I did.
I never seen that one yet.
You gotta see it. It just makes you angry. That's all it does, is make you angry. So today's podcast is about the disturbing death of Sylvia Likens.
Not to be confused with the Likens in another movie. Sylvia Marie Likens was born on January 3rd, 1949, so that's a while ago. Was the third child of Lester and Elizabeth Likens. She had 4 siblings. An older set of twins, Diana and Daniel, and a younger set of twins, Jenny and Benny. Wow, original.
It's pretty rare for one person to have 2 sets of twins, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty rare for one person to have such horrible names for them.
Yeah. Sylvia was 16 years old in 1965. She loved roller skating. She liked the Beatles. Sylvia had long, wavy brown hair and a bright smile despite missing a front tooth due to an accident with her brother. Her family called her Cookie. I knew a stripper called Cookie.
Oh, did you now?
I didn't know her. I just seen her. It was on TV?
Oh, sure. It was probably at the club. I wonder what what happened with the front tooth. Did you, knock her in the bean, as you'd say?
Yeah, it was an accident, I guess, with her brother. Smacked her in the bean.
Sylvia cared for her little sister Jenny, who had a limp leg due to polio. She enjoyed spending her babysitting money on trips to the skating rink with her sister Jenny. Sylvia fastened one skate to Jenny's sturdy foot and held her hand so she could skate with the other kids.
In 1965, Sylvia met Paula and Stephanie Benizowski at Arsenal Technical High School. June 3rd, 1965, Sylvia's mother was arrested for shoplifting. Lester sold concession at carnivals and usually took the boys with him, but could not bring his daughters. Since the Likens and the Benizowski girls got along, Lester decided to send Sylvia and Jenny to live with Gertrude. He agreed to pay $20 a week for their board and care. Gertrude promised to care for the girls as if they were her own.
Yeah, that's even in the movie, that's messed up that they sent her to her friggin'.
Now, you don't just send your kids off to someone you don't know for sure. I mean, I would never do that.
Well, not only that, why are they even sending them away in the first place?
They couldn't go to the carnival with them.
The traditional exorcism of the beer.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Gertrude Benizowski was born on September 19th, 1928. She married John Stephen Benizowski at 16 years old. Man, that's right, eh? Back in the day, it was really young.
Yeah, you're 12? Okay, come on, let's go. Get married. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah. Jerry Lee, screw us. The couple had 4 children together. John became physically violent toward Gertrude as she divorced him in 10 years.
Weeks later, she married Edward Guther. He, too, turned out to be abusive. They divorced within months. Gertrude remarried her first husband and had 2 more children after the divorce for the second time.
So she went back, had more kids with him, and then divorced again?
Yeah.
The roaring 30s, eh? That's some...
I know.
I don't get that. Next, Gertrude met 22-year-old Dennis Lee Wright. At least someone with a normal last name. And the unwed couple had 1 son together, Dennis Jr. in 65. Dennis abandoned Gertrude and the baby. She filed a paternity suit against him, though she never saw a penny.
By 1965, Gertrude was a haggard, chain-smoking single mom of 7 living in squalor at 3850 East New York Street in Indianapolis, Indiana, for $55 a month. Wow. Initially, Banaszowski's family treated Sylvia and Jenny kindly, as promised. The Likens and Banaszowski girls spent time singing popular songs and gossiping about boys.
They didn't go this far into the movie, like this back, right? She was just dropped off in the movie.
Yeah.
And then it just started up.
Well, no. She met the girls in church and then went to their house to play.
Okay. The Banaszowski home was the kind of neighborhood children would come and go from as they pleased. Get away with things their parents wouldn't allow, like smoking, drinking, even raunchy sex talk.
Putting one of your balls into my mouth one at a time, just...
Happened before Gertrude's eyes. Gertrude's 13th pregnancy had just ended in her 6th miscarriage. She's had a lot, eh?
Mm-hmm.
She was tired and looked twice her 31 years. To add her full plate, 17-year-old was pregnant by a married man.
Oh.
Sylvia and Jenny shared a bedroom with 11-year-old Marie, 10-year-old Shirley, and 8-year-old Jimmy. Room had one mattress on the floor that the 5 children took turns sleeping in. Regretfully, Lester and Likens never stepped foot in the home of the woman they hired to care for their daughters. If they had, they would have noticed that there wasn't enough beds. The house had a hot plate where the stove should have been. Gertrude was in no position to take care of children.
No, she was doing friggin', hot knives and the stove was being sold. Dropped them off at like a fucking meth house.
Well, no, she didn't do meth or heroin or anything.
Oh, I'm just saying.
What are you talking about?
Whatever. Gertrude, that's a meth name.
No, it would have been her mother was the meth head for naming her it.
Runs in the family. Yeah. Gertrude was suffering for money. Without the weekly $20, she had no way to feed all the 9 children and still pay rent. $20 to feed all those kids? That's all. What? Take me back
in the
then.
40s.
Yeah, that's when bread was like 5 cents.
Yeah.
She was glad Mr. Likens paid $20 up front, but when the future payments arrived late or not at all, she became enraged, man. She went nuts. The $20 snapped her brain.
The Likens sisters became an object of Gertrude's contempt. After the first late payment, she dragged Jenny upstairs and whipped her with a leather belt. "Well, I took care of you 2 bitches for the week for nothing," she growled.
This is all over $20.
That's how it started, yeah.
That's a meth problem.
Back in the 40s, that was a lot of money, right? $55 a month she paid rent.
Yeah, $55 a month, and 50 of it was for meth. The money arrived in the mail the day after the first spanking. Sylvia and Jenny's parents came a few days later and gave another advanced payment. Gotta pay up. Pay me the money. Sisters said nothing of the beating. Even in the movie, they're like, she was doing that manipulating shit. You don't say nothing.
Well, exactly. When Gertrude learned that Sylvia was recycling pop bottles for cash, she cut loose on her with a 1/4-inch wooden paddle. She hit her repeatedly across the back and the head. When Gertrude became weak due to the chronic bronchitis she had, she handed the paddle to her daughter, Paula.
Mama's tired.
It's a pretty brutal movie. Like this movie really makes me feel sorry for this kid, man. Like, I don't know how someone can put children through this.
Even being an actor and having to play that has to play some fucked up shit in you, man. Because, that's...
Oh, yeah.
Just going through that, even if we're fake, is still fucked up, man. I forget what Stephen King said. There was a review that Stephen King did on it, and he was like, you want a real disturbing movie? This is it.
Oh, when it comes to disturbing movies, I give it a 10 out of 10. Absolutely. Both movies, The Girl Next Door and An American Crime, as equally as brutal. In An American Crime, it shows a few things that didn't get talked about in The Girl Next Door. So you may want to watch both. Anybody listening, it's going to make you angry. It's going to make you think twice before leaving your kids with a stranger, that's for sure.
The abuse increased and became more frequent and severe. Gertrude may have felt sorry for Jenny due to her fragility because by August of 1965, Gertrude concentrated her outbursts on Sylvia.
Sylvia admitted she had a boyfriend in California. Gertrude was disgusted, and so was her daughter Paula, who repeatedly kicked Sylvia in the vaginal area and accused her of being pregnant. Not only was she subject to the beatings, but Gertrude also started abusing Sylvia with food. Sylvia began to forage for food in dumpsters. When Gertrude caught her, she and Paula and the neighborhood children named Randy Lepper forced her to eat a hot dog loaded with condiments and spices, and when Sylvia threw up, the 3 of them made her eat the vomit.
Ooh.
That wasn't in the movie, though.
No, it wasn't. This is a grown woman. who actually had more respect for her children, her own children, than she did the girls she was, trying to care for.
Well, obviously she had severe mental illness.
Obviously.
That's what happens.
But if she was so abusive, why didn't she abuse her own children like that? It's a legit question, It's like she got off on it.
The girls returned to school in the fall, which pleased their father. Gertrude accused Sylvia of spreading rumors that Paula and Stephanie were prostitutes. Gertrude admonished the girls in front of her own children and their friends. Stephanie's 15-year-old boyfriend, Coy Hubert, attacked Sylvia in response. Stephanie snickered as Gertrude taunted Sylvia by calling her filthy, nasty names. Just filthy.
Gertrude accuses Sylvia of stealing gym clothes. As punishment, she burnt her fingertips with a lit match while screaming that she hated Sylvia and how she was ruining her life. Somehow, the subject turned to Sylvia's alleged promiscuity. You should never do anything with a boy until you're married, Gertrude said. Sylvia replied she hadn't, which infuriated Gertrude. Should never. Gertrude shrieked as she kicked Sylvia in the pubic area repeatedly.
Just hammering in those box punches, eh?
I know, it's like, what the hell are you trying to do?
Kicking Sylvia did not satisfy Gertrude at all. She made Sylvia strip naked and insert a glass cola bottle into her vagina while her child accomplices watched and... Jeez, man.
The movie infuriated me. Like, seriously, it just made me angry. I did watch it front to back, but I couldn't believe that what I was watching was real, that somebody could actually put a child through this.
Sylvia's parents checked on their daughters on October 5th. Again, they kept their secret, afraid of making it worse. So as abusers do, Gertrude banned them from seeing their sister Diana, who lived nearby. That would be like, well, something's up, they're not coming anymore. It's amazing it went on this long. Gertrude alienated them from anyone who cared. Paula once held the door open and dared Sylvia to get away and stay away. Sylvia had nowhere to go, though.
Oh, exactly. It's a rock and a hard place, right? Sylvia's last day of school was on October 6th, the day after her parents' visit. Gertrude told the school that Sylvia had no interest in going, pretended to be concerned. In reality, Gertrude banned Sylvia to the cold basement.
Oh, this is when everything starts to...
Well, this is when it's like it's going on for fun for them. They're having a great time with it.
Yeah, I don't fucking...
The kids are bringing other kids home from school, and they're going down, taking turns abusing them. But we'll get to that.
Coy, Stephanie's boyfriend, became one of Sylvia's primary attackers. He enjoyed body slamming Sylvia forcefully onto the concrete basement floor, like wrestling, and tiring up for days at Gertrude's request. Kids from the school visited the residence and participated in Sylvia's torture. Gertrude, being the ringleader, coached them step by step.
Nothing was off limits. If the children wanted to practice judo, Gertrude had them practice on Sylvia. Some kids put cigarettes out on Sylvia's skin to hear her cry. Gertrude would bathe Sylvia in scalding hot water until her skin blistered.
How are these kids that young? What the fuck's wrong with that city or town?
Well, I can tell you this much. I don't care what year it was or how many, how old they were. I think anybody knows the difference between right and wrong. Now, there is an element of fear, I'm sure, in every one of those kids that if they didn't do what they were told, that they themselves would get some sort of abuse.
I mean, it's just crazy that so many of them were in on it. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, no, I don't want to go do that. But somebody had to say, hey, we're going to torture this girl. You want to come along? Oh, yeah, it seems like a good fucking time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, come and play at my house where we can beat up a girl and put cigarettes
Conversations
out in her.
they had to have to get them there. I mean, wouldn't they be like, no? So that's what I mean. Like, every kid there is fucked up.
I don't know. I really feel for this girl, man. I watched this movie and I was just fucking mortified.
Paula once beat Sylvia's face until she broke her wrist. That's some severe hammering. Doctors put a cast on her arm while Paula bragged about exactly how she broke it. So she's telling everybody that's how she broke it?
Yeah, she bragged about...
Wouldn't there be cops?
Well, kids talk, kids make stories, and back then, apparently they did it frequently, like often.
Anyways, when she got home, she continued to hit Sylvia with her cast. Wasn't enough to break her wrist, so I'm going to smash you with my cast now.
Gertrude used a needle to carve the letter I into the flesh of Sylvia's abdomen. Unable to finish the statement, she encouraged the 15-year-old neighbor, Richard Hobbs, to complete the task. I'm a prostitute and proud of it. He etched into her belly. Gertrude helped him spell prostitute. So I guess he wasn't, they weren't too bright back in that day.
Well, that's what I mean. They probably got to the manipulative, uneducated kids, the bad apples, anyways, right? Maybe because I mean, obviously, look at her. She was with her kids. She was already fucked as it was. So, I mean, that's what they're learning. At Gertrude's request, Richard heated a metal hook and attempted to brand the letter S on Sylvia's chest, but instead branded her with the number 3. Gertrude justified it by saying Sylvia branded her child, and now she branded Sylvia. What are you going to do now? You can't get married now, Gertrude taunted. Sylvia whimpered to her, I guess there's nothing I can do.
Doesn't that just floor you?
I didn't, when I was watching the movie, dude, honestly, when those scenes came out, some of them, I just kind of fast forwarded till I got to when they weren't doing the shit anymore, because I couldn't watch any more of it. I was just watching the story at that point.
Needless to say, I watched it all. I didn't fast forward anything, but I kind of wish I did at some parts in both movies. So Coy Hubbard, Stephanie's boyfriend, returned and tied Sylvia up in the basement, where he slammed her frail body into the wall over and over. Gertrude finally broke Sylvia's spirit. Jenny, she consoled her baby sister. I know you don't want me to die, but I'm going to. I can tell. Her voice was weak and trembling.
The beatings made Sylvia incontent. Sylvia started to lose control of her limbs, too. Gertrude knew Sylvia was taking a turn for the worse, so she permitted Sylvia to sleep on the mattress in the upstairs bedroom. After giving her a lukewarm bath, she condemned her back to the basement and forced her to write a letter. So there's a letter.
And that was in case the kid did die, because Gertrude knew she was taking a turn for the worse, like it said. So she got her to write a letter stating that she met up with some boys that basically beat her up that bad. Read the letter.
Got it right here. To Mr. and Mrs. Likens, I went with a gang of boys in the middle of the night, and they said that they would pay me if I would give them something, so I got in the car and they all got what they wanted. And when they got finished, they beat me up and left sores on my face and all over my body. And they also put on my stomach. I am a prostitute and proud of it. I have done just about everything that I could do just to make Gertrude mad and cause Gertie more money than she's got. I've tore up new mattresses and peed too on it. I have also cost Gertie doctor bills that she really can't pay and made Gertie a nervous wreck. And all of her kids. So that's the letter.
That's what she was forced to write. That night, Sylvia heard Gertrude and her children making plans to dump her in the woods. A last-ditch effort, Sylvia tried to run, but Gertrude caught Sylvia, dragged her inside, and attempted to feed her toast. Sylvia didn't have any strength to eat. Gertrude struck her in the face with a curtain rod. Her son, John, returned her to the basement.
John tied Sylvia's wrists to the basement railing. Her toes barely touched the ground. Gertrude shoved crackers into Sylvia's parched mouth. Sylvia told her she wasn't hungry and suggested she feed them to the dog. Gertrude then punched Sylvia in her belly. John force-fed her the contents of baby Denny's diaper, as well as her own feces.
Right, it's just nothing funny about this. It's just horrible. So on October 25th, Gertrude, Cody, and John beat Sylvia until she lost consciousness when Gertrude stomped on her head. When she came to, she gathered up enough strength to bang on the basement floor and walls, hoping someone would help her. No one came.
To even think she could get strength after all that, I mean, stomped her head.
Yeah.
So on October 26, 1965 in the morning, Gertrude and Stephanie bathed Sylvia. Finally, during her bath, Sylvia stopped breathing. The Benazowskis were terrified, not because they cared, because they would be caught. Stephanie tried unsuccessfully to revive her with CPR. Gertrude placed Sylvia's broken body back on the mattress and instructed Richard to call the cops.
Your hands up!
Oh, so Richard called the cops.
Mm-hmm. Well, what choice did they have at this point, right?
Well, yeah, they're fucked.
Gertrude handed the police Sylvia's letter. She told them that Sylvia ran away recently and returned injured, clutching the note. Gertrude pretended she was grieving and claimed that she was doctoring Sylvia.
The officers rounded the hall corner to find Sylvia's mangled form lying lifeless on that soiled mattress. A dirty old mattress, just lying there. Deputy Coroner Arthur Keble noted that Sylvia's lips were practically chewed through. All 10 of her fingernails were bent backward and broken. She had hundreds of wounds on her skin, all of them in different stages of healing, suggesting ongoing trauma. Dr. Charles Ellis performed the autopsy, and the cause of death was torture.
The police asked Jenny what happened, and she repeated what Gertrude had said to the police. but added, "Get me out of here and I'll tell you everything."
Gertrude was convicted of first-degree murder. Paula was convicted of second-degree murder. Each received a life sentence, but after a second trial, Paula pled down to manslaughter and was released 2 years later. Gertrude was paroled in 1985. She claims she had no memory of her actions. She died 4 years later of lung cancer. If there is a devil in hell, he is currently roasting the old bat over hot coals.
Paula moved to Iowa, where she secured a new identity and a job at an elementary school. Stephanie married, had several children, and became a school teacher. Richard Hobbs, Coy Hubbard, or Hubert, whatever it is, and Gertrude's son John were convicted of manslaughter. All received 2 to 21 years prison term, in which they served 2 years. Richard died of cancer at the age of 21.
Baby Denny was adopted into a new family, as was the daughter Paula was pregnant with during the crime. Jenny Likens married and had children of her own. She lived long enough to read Gertrude's obituary, which she mailed to her mother with a letter that read, "Some good news. Damn old Gertrude died. Ha 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 ha. I'm happy about that."
So they're saying that the baby that Paula was pregnant with got adopted to a new family.
Yeah.
This kind of abuse that they submitted on this girl, and then they're having other kids. I just don't get it. I don't know why anybody would want to do that to another human being. So the death of Sylvia Likens continues to haunt Indianapolis as the worst crime ever committed in the state. Prosecutor Leroy New said it best. "This case never had its equal. It's the most vicious thing, most hideous thing Indiana has ever seen."
The house has sat empty for decades before it was leveled. It is now a church parking lot. A memorial dedicated to Sylvia's memory stands in Willard Park, where Sylvia used to play.
Wow, it's I don't even know what to say. I mean, I said it throughout the whole episode. It's just crazy. I mean, I don't know how anybody can inflict that kind of torture on a child, you know, and then sit in court and say she doesn't remember any of it, and she accused the children of lying as well. So Paula Benizowski served 7 years in prison. She ended up being a teacher or worked at a school. Some of the neighborhood people found her on social media and figured out who she was. She changed her name to Pace instead of Benizowski. Even though she wasn't charged with any additional crimes, she was fired from her job for providing false information on her employment application. So I remember they actually had that on the news and everything.
Really? You heard the news of that?
Yeah, well, I found it on YouTube, the actual the news reporting of it.
And what about that Richard dude?
Richard Hobbs.
He served 2 years.
2 years.
He was another kid who tortured Sylvia. He performed the infamous act of helping to carve the words, "I am a prostitute and proud of it," into her stomach with a large needle. And that task was begun by Gertrude, but when she became too fatigued to finish, Hobbs stepped in. So he was convicted of manslaughter. He served a short sentence and died of cancer in 1972 at age 21. Karma!
I don't know if that's how he was brought up, but I mean, then there's Coy Hobbs. He served 2 years in prison. He's another neighborhood kid. That was Stephanie Benizowski's boyfriend. He was a full participant in Sylvia's torture. Included using her for a practice dummy, for judo flips, punches, shoving her down the basement stairs. Wow. Anyways, he was convicted of manslaughter, but he only served 2 years as well before being released. He died in June of that year.
If you were to rate the movie, not the story of the real story, but the movie itself.
Well, I think the fact that they held back nothing, except for some details, and it kept me on the edge of my seat and made me very angry. The movie did what it was supposed to do to somebody. Personally, I'd give it a 5 out of 5. For both of them, An American Crime and The Girl Next Door.
I'd give it 3 out of 5 because I couldn't really watch it all the way through because of the content.
Well, normally I wouldn't watch something like that. I mean, I've walked out of theaters when kids are getting hurt.
It's a hard watch. And, I mean, if you like that kind of shit, it's going to be all right. But it's not a horror movie. It's a disturbing, psychological fucking movie.
Yeah, it's a horror crime.
It's good at what it does. It stays pretty true to the real story as well. So
I will say, The Girl Next Door, it was very good acting. I don't recall any of the actors. I don't know who they were. However, on An American Crime, it was actually Ellen Page that played Sylvia Likens.
Now, was that movie just as disturbing as this one?
Equally, if not worse.
You said there's some stuff, pictures on Facebook on this and stuff.
Yeah, I put a bunch of pictures of what Sylvia looked like, and unfortunately, before and after her, abuse. There's pictures of Gertrude and some of the kids. There's some links to some articles as well as a YouTube documentary.
And that's on our Facebook page?
Yeah, right under the, it'll be right under the, the advertisement picture for this episode.
It'll be under the new episode post.
Right. So I guess that's it for this week's episode of Nightmares with Beer. As we mention every episode, if you have a story of your own, email it to us. We'd like to see it. Maybe we'll have you on the show. Maybe we can just read it on the show. You can also leave a voicemail. Just hit the link on our Facebook page, and you can leave a voicemail. So the email address is nightmareswithbeer@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week.